listeners. Welcome to another episode of our What's Your Career series brought to you by Link Your Purpose. I'm Imani Price, a mentee with Link Your Purpose and the guest host for today's episode. Today, we have none other than Miss Eva Forde with us. Good evening, Eva. Thank you for joining us today. We hope to get to know you more and have an exciting interview. Let us dive right into the question. Our first question is, what is your career and what does it entail?
So, hi, Imani, and hi, viewers. My career. So, I'm a trained social worker. And I say trained because there's a lot of feelings around that title, social worker. A lot of people feel like, hey, they're a good person, they do good in their communities, and they, give to their church, and they spend a lot of time helping other people. And so they feel very justified in using the term social worker. But that's actually a technical, protected professional term, and it applies to people who have at least 4 years of training at the bachelor's level as a social worker. And I've got that. So I have a bachelor's in social work, but I also have a master's in social work that I received from Columbia University in New York. So, and I will say this, that internationally, social work is, like I said, those 4 years. But I know there's some other jurisdictions that work with, 2 years or 3 years of some level of professional social work training. And many of those are like smaller islands or smaller jurisdictions. I've kind of given you that big definition, but essentially what we do is, yeah, we help people. A lot of times people think that that is just confined to giving clothes or shelter or counsel. But social workers can be found in all kinds of arenas of practice, including legal and policy, making laws that protect people, organizing systems, developing plans for cities and governments. And essentially, our mandate is wherever we can be of service to enhance the quality of life, that's where you'll find us.
Thank you, Miss Ford. Thank you for answering that question. The second question, what qualities does one need to have to be suited to become a social worker?
Qualities would be, definitely you want to be a generous person. You like to be giving. And here, I'll say this, I'll qualify my statement with this. There's an ideal of who you should be and the qualities you should have as a social worker. Um, Unfortunately, that's not always what we see in practice. And it is, I say unfortunately, because this really is the only, well, not the only profession dedicated to helping people. Of course, we have nurses and doctors and people like that. But social workers are, like I said, our mandate is to help others. And so ideally, you want people with a pleasing disposition to others, a good bedside manner, as the medical industry would say. You want people who listen and who are compassionate and caring. You want people who are thoughtful and who are patient in their lives as dispositions. But even if you don't have that as a disposition, you want people at least who are growers and learners and open to change, because that's one thing you can count on in this profession is change. You're going to change. The environment that you live and work in is going to change. Your clients are going to change. Dynamics are going to change. So you definitely want to be somebody that's flexible. So those are some qualities that I would really say people need for this profession.
Okay, adapting to change. Thank you. What steps do I need to take in order to become a trained social worker?
Steps to become a trained social worker. So you need to enroll in a university, and a university that has a social work program, right? So that program would be, so for example, I know we're broadcasting from Jamaica, and Jamaica has a 2 year like certificate social work course, and it's a social work, I think it's like pre-practitioner's course. Um, that is a good start, but to be called and to function as a fully functioning social worker, you need to go the 4 years. And those 4 years include some of your general schooling, like, you're going to do your math and your English and your psychology and some things that everybody has to do in college, right? But then you're going to have at least 2 years. Most people have like 2.5 years of solid social work training. That includes research, that includes economics, that includes psychology and social development and sociology and clinical courses. Like, when I say clinical, I mean you're learning about the individual, right? You're learning about family dynamics. You're learning about systems. So you're learning about how all of these things work to improve or hinder human functioning on we call it a micro, meso, or macro level, on an individual level, on the small group or medium-sized group level, and then on the big organizational, governmental, international level as well. So those are some of the courses that you would take. And I would also say, for those that can volunteer or intern with social service organizations, whether or not you're in school, like, that will give you a really good understanding of some of the real hard work that goes into being a social worker.
Okay, thank you, Eva. Can you give me an estimate of what the tuition would be like, or the cost of attendance in going to school and everything, becoming a trained social worker?
That one's a little hard for me because I've been away from the education for a long time. But it's like any 4-year degree. I will say this, though: social work is a practice degree. So it's not just theory. It's not just something you do online. It's practice. So a lot of cost goes into the practicing the practice. So you've got to go and maybe visit clients. You have to travel to attend meetings and workshops. Absolutely, things have changed in this era of COVID, where we're doing a lot of things online, but there will never be a proper substitute for human intervention and human interaction. So social work students complain a lot, rightfully so, that it's expensive. And it's not more expensive than, let's say, a biology major or computer science major, except that you have to travel, and then it's gonna be hard. I'll say this: if you are going into communities or organizations, let's say like schools or things like that, and you see a need, social workers are going to be the first ones to come out of pocket. They're going to say, I can't leave people like this. We have to do something. And they are going to go broke themselves trying to help someone else. So that's where it gets really expensive. Or I should say, that's where cost comes in for those that maybe don't know how to. That's why it's important to learn business skills as well. Like, on the side, I encourage people now to like take a supplemental course in business or entrepreneurship or something, so that you can understand how the money works. Because a lot of social workers, once they get into the profession, they realize, like, hey, I haven't figured out how to make money, or how to save my money, or how to use my money. Yes, I've been fulfilled helping other people, but my lights are about to be turned off. So I really encourage social workers to get smart about money and money creation and money management and money saving and money investing as well. That will help you to be a better social worker, because the less you're worried about cash flow, the more good you can do.
Thank you. Can you speak about scholarships and grants that are really granted in social work industry?
So if we're talking Jamaica, I know UE has some grants. Individuals have scholarships. I actually can't say off the top of my head. I know that we don't have enough for social workers in particular. That's one of the things I actually am hoping to do. Not hoping, like, that's a goal that I'm working towards now, is creating some grants for social workers. And I've thought about, like, what would qualify, because when you apply for a grant, right, your other people are applying for the same grant. And So you've got to think about, like, what does that grantor want, whether you're a social worker or not? Because social work, you could have a social work major and get a scholarship, in, for your grades or for your attendance or for just persevering. It doesn't have to be because of social work, right? But irrespective, there are other people that would love to have that same scholarship. So you've got to think about, okay, what would make me stand out for this scholarship? And I think a lot of students, right, don't pay attention to their personal well-being, right? So maybe they didn't learn great study habits, or maybe they didn't learn emotional intelligence, and so when they get into college, they're just sure, me can bada, me can this, me can that. And I have to say, you're probably not going to be looked upon for a scholarship. You've got to be someone that is doing some work yourself. Like, you have to be showing up. You have to at least be saying, like, hey, this is what I've done in my community, or hey, even though I had a hard time, I've been working, right? You've got to have put some effort in. We say skin in the game. So although I don't know off the top of my head the scholarships, I will say, for those that are looking for scholarships, make yourself attractive. And the way you make yourself attractive is by doing exactly what you're doing, Imani. Nobody forced you to be here. You raised your hand and said, hey, I want to be here. I want to be a part of Link Your Purpose. I want to show up. I want to make myself available, right? So people, follow Imani's example.
Thank you, Eva. Earlier, you had mentioned doing some sort of business degree or entrepreneurship while doing social work. I was also wondering if having a law degree or some knowledge of law would be good as well.
So I'll say this: social work is a great profession for everything. Like, it's a great companion. It's great because it's about people. And I mean, it gives you, to me, I feel like I kind of, when I graduated, I was like, ooh, I know more than my friends. Yeah, they're smart, baby, book smart, but I'm people smart. Like, I know how to, like, persuade, and I know how to, I understand why they're having the problems that they're having. Like, there's a lot that I get that they don't get. Of course, there's things that they get in technical terms that I might not understand, but it's the degree of social work. It's such an advantage. So, in fact, my personal story was, I went 2 years in school without any. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was just doing general courses, and I was getting depressed because all my friends were, they were pre-med, or they were law, or they were, getting on with life. And a friend of mine said, why don't you do social work? Now, I didn't know all the things that social workers could do. So I said, I don't want to take away people's kids, thinking that was what they did. And she said, no, that's not what they do. It's not the only thing. She said, as a matter of fact, if you decide to do something else, it's a really good foundation for anything else you want to do. So that's what sold me. That's what made me say, okay, at least I won't be wasting my time. But what I found out was, when I actually got into classes, I was like, oh, wait a minute, this is amazing. Like, you mean I can get paid for being myself? I can get paid for just, like, connecting with people, and for, like, listening to them and just pointing them in the right direction and supporting them. What? Like, this is amazing. Of course, I found out there's more technicality to it, but essentially, it's such a good profession. In fact, when I went to get my master's, I looked into a dual degree with law and social work, because I had lived in another country. During those 2 years where I didn't know what I was going to do, I went and lived in Taiwan, and I fell in love with international travel. And so I thought I was going to be some international social worker. And so I was getting a law degree so that I could, like, work at the United Nations and, like, understand international law, how to help people, and the border crisis and what's going on with immigrants, right? But then I was like, oh, it's going to be 3 years on top. At the time, I was like, no, I'm not doing that. So I would recommend, like, here's the thing. You don't need another degree with social work. Social work is plenty. But if you have another interest, do some additional side courses. You don't have to get a whole nother degree. You can just, like, I don't have another degree. I have 2 social work degrees. And since then, I've taken different business courses and social media courses and just finance courses and just different courses to support my growth and my learning. So that's what I would recommend to people. You don't have to. I know in Jamaica, we're really big on letters behind our names, but the rest of the world doesn't care as much as you think they do. In this day and age, people care what you know. So whether or not you got that knowledge from your experience or from working somewhere, they're not as concerned about the letters behind your name.
Thank you, Eva.
You're
Can you
welcome.
tell me about some benefits that are associated with being a social worker?
Self-awareness, number 1, 2, and 3. That I'm laughing because my social work friends, we always say, we're like, wow, we're so grateful for the training that we have, because like a lot, not that social workers don't deal with, anxiety or stress or loneliness or different things like that, but we have the tools to understand what's going on, to seek support. Kind of when you go to social work school, you kind of have a network of counselors and therapists. So like you have a built-in support system, which is always good. But benefits, I mean, like I said, self-awareness is huge. I've met people, I know a lot of people who are, twice my age, who never had the training, and they had to learn through life experience, hard life experience, some of the things that I got a chance to learn and, kind of understand in school. Some other benefits are, like I mentioned before, it's such a diverse degree. It's a leadership degree. So when you get out of school, you are a leader. Like you can speak with authority, because social work just educates you on such a high level about, like I said, human behavior, understanding, psychology, biology, and how biology and psychology work together, sociology, the history of things. So it teaches you how to, present, teaches you how to, conduct different meetings and manage different personalities in different scenarios. It teaches you to deal with crises. It teaches you how to organize and plan. And so, like I said, it's really a leadership degree. So that's a huge advantage. I personally have a YouTube channel called Rich Social Worker. And on the channel, I'm talking to social workers about how to leverage their degree for more wealth and more life balance. And I had someone on the channel, I interviewed someone on the channel. Her name is Catherine Zambetti, for anyone who wants to check it out. But she had a business degree. Her undergrad degree was business. And she said that when she was looking for a degree that would enhance her business degree, she looked and considered different degrees. And she realized that social work was the degree that was going to give her the most leverage. So she got a social work degree. A lot of social workers don't understand that, but she and many other people, as business people, they understand that, oh, this is the degree that's hot. This is the degree that will help me leverage. A lot of social workers don't understand the power that they have with that social work degree. So that's a benefit.
Okay, thank you. Can
Sure.
you tell me about some courses that I need to be good at in high school so I'd be able to matriculate into social working in college?
There's no courses that you need to be good at, because social work is not it's not one of those you get it right, you get it wrong degrees. It's not like a math where 2 + 2 must equal 4. That's not the case. in social work, you need to be the quality that you need to have the most, even if you're not good with English, or if you're not good with if you're not good with science or math. you need to be you need to be changeable. You need to be coachable. You need to be a learner. You can't go into social work and know it all. You can't go into social work and be unwilling to change. You need to be a person that has a growth mindset or a growth mentality. And that is someone who says, okay, I can change, I can learn, I can grow. Now, that doesn't mean that you might not buck up angry students who are in social work. But the fact that they're there, I've seen amazing transformations from people who first come in, and they come in because maybe they are looking to heal themselves, and they feel like, I don't want any child to go through the abuse or the rape or the neglect that I went through, right? So they go in with good intentions, but they've got so much drama and so much pain that when they first enter the field, right? When they enter as freshmen, it doesn't show up. Like it's very, they're antagonistic, they're angry. But what social work does, and this is what I love, social work will help you to see yourself, and it will help to show you about yourself, things you didn't even know, you should know about yourself. It's just so eye-opening. It's so great. It's it's like, what should I say? I don't know. I got my first social work degree over 20 years ago, and I'm still excited about it because it's such a great profession. It's a gift. It's a gift. Studying social work is a gift.
Thank you, Eva. I was also wondering if you had any challenges while completing your degree.
Personally, I had challenges. I think that the challenge I had, I mentioned before, like I didn't know what I was going to do for a while. That I was very depressed, like depressed, feeling like I don't want to be in this world anymore. Depressed, like what's my purpose in life if I don't I don't know what I'm here for. But when I did find social work, it helped me to see that, oh, I have some value. But then the other challenges that came up were, mm, social work, because it's based on people. It's easy to take it for a joke and take it like, I don't know, nothing, like. And so I struggled with studying and being serious about it and focusing, and I just got by on, you know, like kind of skating through and figuring things out in school. Now, what ended up happening is, in practice, when I started working with people, I got really burned, and I made some huge mistakes that impacted people negatively, and you know, it's hard. It was hard. It's hard to realize that because of your lack of seriousness, um, you've damaged someone's life. Um, I'll give you an example. Now, the end of the story is all things ended up well, but I had a client. This was not long after school. I had a client who I did not know was a manipulator. He was narcissistic. He had been in and out of jail, but he was so nice, so very charming. I didn't know he was an abuser. And we would have these great conversations, and I was like, oh, he's so nice, thinking that that was it. He was nice. And I found out that he had been abusing one of my colleagues who he was dating, actually. So two things were going on. He shouldn't have been She shouldn't have been dating him. She wasn't a social worker, she was a nurse, but she was also his client. She shouldn't have been dating him, number one. But she had been dating him from before anyway. Shouldn't have been dating him. But number two, when I found out that he had been hitting her and she had black eyes and was coming to work with black eyes, I said to him, "Did you hit such and such?" He said, "No, no." I said, "Yeah, I didn't think you would do that." I was so naive because I had not taken it seriously. And what ended up happening, she came to me the next day and said, because of you, I got beaten last night. You can't imagine how that feels. Because of my incompetence, because of my arrogance, because of my inability to really see how serious my actions were. This is the seriousness of social work. So it's not a joke profession. It's not an easy profession. But if you take it as a joke, you end up hurting people. Who knows? She could have lost her life. Who knows? And that's one example of a mess up. But you better believe I started taking it really seriously, went back to my books, got proper supervision. Do you know what I mean? So you asked me, what are some of the challenges? Some of the biggest challenge I see social workers having is with themselves. And there are some financial challenges, like I said, but a lot of the challenges are, because social work makes you look inside, because you can't work with someone else and not see yourself. It's impossible. So those were some of the challenges that I had, really just growing pains of understanding my power and my responsibility, and really coming to grips with that, and just understanding, how do I do this? You because you have insecurities. Well, maybe I'm not cut out for this. And that's not true either. It's just, you got to be patient with yourself. You've got to take it seriously. And you've got to be willing. This is why I said you have to be willing to be open to and be flexible, be open to coaching and changing, and be open to supervision and all of those things. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you. It answers it perfectly. Okay, Eva, you have spoken about the challenges during this career. Can you tell me a highlight that you've experienced while
Oh
working?
my goodness. Too many. Too many highlights. Too many highlights. I'll give you one highlight. Too many. There's too many. Anyway, one highlight is so before I was in Jamaica, I was in New York, and I was working at a clinic, an HIV clinic, and for people with HIV and AIDS. And a woman came in, and the doctor just gave her to me. And she said, she just found out that she's HIV positive and she's having a hard time. And she was just crying and crying. And she was from Africa. And she said she never thought she would have HIV. She just saw the free test and was, hanging out, and said, okay, I'll just get a test, and never expected it to come back positive. And she was in the US, undocumented. She had left her children in Africa. She was working, and she said, in my village, HIV is so taboo because we've lost so many people. And so they treat you like you're a leper if you have HIV. And she said, how can I, face anybody? Now, this was a woman who was otherwise healthy, and her T cells, so her immune system, started to go down. When she found out she was HIV positive, she was so sad. And every time she would come in, her immune system was lower and lower, which is not good because, you need to have a high immune system in order to fight off infection. That's the whole problem with HIV. So nothing could cheer her up. And then I didn't see her for about a month. And when she came back, she was happy. And so I said, what happened? And so she said, a friend of mine from Africa came to visit me, And while they were with me, I cooked for them and we went out. She said, I forgot that I had HIV. And I just realized that, you know what? I'm going to live my life. And her T cells, her immune system had shot back up. So we had a prop. So that was great, right? She was in a better mood. We were able to get her legal assistance because she was in the US illegally. We were able to get her legal assistance. We were able to get her free housing. And we were even able, well, I wasn't while I was there, but I started the ball in motion for her daughters to come to the States. And I found out later, after I had moved to Jamaica, that her daughters indeed had come to the States, and she was reunited with her family, and she was doing really well, really, really well. So that's a great success story, because what I'm not telling you is all of the conversations with different lawyers and people saying, no, 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 we can't serve her, or she's illegal, or, you know, we don't have services for her, or there's no housing. Like, I'm not telling you all of the roadblocks. I'm just telling you the success. So that was very gratifying, because you're changing somebody's life. I realized again, my power in that I was working with a lawyer who was a pro bono lawyer, and she needed something from me to say that she was eligible for services. If I didn't say that, she could be deported back to Africa. That's a lot of power. And it's so great to know that you can use it to help somebody.
Thank you, Eva. That's a pretty good way of using your ball for good and not for bad. I'd also like to know, are there any books I can read to gain more knowledge on becoming a social worker? Not limited to books, but additional resources like websites, social media pages, forums, stuff like that.
So there's a great book called How Not to Practice Social Work by me. It's actually, I wrote it when I was at NCU. I was there for about 6.5, 7 years. And one of the things I noticed was that my students understood the theory, but they didn't always get the practice of social work. So How Not to Practice Social Work is really for the young social worker or the old social worker who needs a refresher. And it's really just about how to show up, how to make sure that you are well for yourself before you can be well for anyone else. So that, to be honest, that's less about social work and more about how you present as a social worker. But there's tons of websites. So there's a website called The New Social Worker online, and that has so many great resources and articles, and you've got students in there who are writing about their perspective. You've got experienced practitioners in there. You've got books. There's all kinds of. I'm in so many social work networks. There's a couple spaces online. One in particular is called, because I'm assuming most of our viewers are of African descent. There's a space online called Black Girls in Social Work. You can find all kinds of resources in there, and perspectives from a African perspective, even Afro-Caribbean's perspective. There's Social Workers Rise, which is a podcast led by Catherine Moore. And that podcast has all kinds of great interviews from social workers on there about what it's like to practice and burnout. Burnout is a huge issue with a lot of social workers, with a lot of caregivers. And because social workers are ultimately caregivers, burnout is a big theme. So burnout reduction, they talk about on there. They talk about leveraging your degree and using it in different ways. So honestly, there are too many resources to count. But yeah, if you do any kind of, I think that the resources I shared with you have tons of links to other resources. So, and you can follow me online at Rich Social Worker on Instagram and see all of the social workers that I follow. There's a lot.
Thank you, Eva. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What advice do you have for students watching right now who would like to pursue a similar career path?
So, like I said earlier, don't wait for uh, admittance into a degree program. You know, where are you serving right now? Where can you get some mentorship in social work? Um, Social work is happens in places like victim support unit, of course, CPFSA. Oh boy, there's tons. Ministry of Labor and Social Security. And the Ministry of Labor and Social Security not only has like PATH that employs the most number of social workers on the island, but they also have the senior program. And that program is amazing. It really works with the seniors on the island to help them thrive as older people. A lot of our seniors are home by themselves. So I would say, get involved. Even if your church has, some volunteer programs where you're assisting people, get involved. It's great if you can find a mentor in the social work space, because hopefully you find a good mentor who practices ethically and who can kind of show you the ropes, talk to you about things like confidentiality and why we don't su people's business in the street. We don't do that. Again, people's lives, you never know. Um, that person hopefully can show you about, how to listen. And because a lot of times people will tell you their problems, but they'll tell you about the problem on the surface. So how to listen is how to hear what they're not saying, what's not happening. So, for example, someone might say, "Oh, they just don't like me to talk to people. So, sometimes they they look in my phone. That sounds controlling to me. Are you sure?" It tells you like let's listen for what you're not saying. Are you how does that make you feel? Are you happy with that? Is that, what do you think about that? So that's what I would say. Find some mentors if you can and plug in to the places and the programs that are already doing good work. So here at Link Your Purpose, and with young women and men of purpose, um, I actually support those programs and am a social worker. There are other social workers that also support. So whether or not I'm there or, but the organization itself is a social intervention, right? So plug into those programs and get that mentorship.
Thank you, Eva. We have come to the end of another exciting episode. I would like to thank Eva for sitting with us. It has indeed been a pleasure. Special thanks to our viewers for sticking with us, and we hope you found this episode to be exciting, informative, and satisfying, as I have. In case you have any more questions, remember that you can visit our website at www.linkyourpurpose.com and talk with a professional in your area. Please join us again next time for another episode of What's Your Career video series with Link Your Purpose.